Alright guys, I'm going to talk about change management today, and forgive me if I draw this when I mean change. The science nerds will get it, everyone else just go, yeah, when he draws that triangle, that means change. Change management is a massive part of project management, and it's something that we become really unstuck doing. And I'll go through and explain a few of the reasons why many of us struggle with change management, and why it scares a lot of people. Firstly, what is a change? Well, a change is a deviation from your agreed plan. That could be a deviation of time, cost. Most generally, it's a deviation of scope. We end up increasing or decreasing the specifications for the project. Anything not agreed is a change, is a good way of looking at it. So work not on the work breakdown structure, or functionality that we've put into the deliverable that was not agreed is a change. What makes change management very, very hard is a poorly defined scope. If your scope looks something like this, with lots of holes and is very murky, how do you know what your inclusions are and what your exclusions are? Go to the scope matrix video and that will help you to define the scope a bit better, but when you start implementing your project, you pretty much want a well-defined scope. Otherwise, it's going to make change management very, very hard. Likewise, if you consider the work breakdown structure, if your work breakdown structure is a very high level, it becomes really hard to identify the exact work that's part of this component. So where possible, break your work breakdown structure as deep as you can, and that will make change management easy. The reason behind that, and the reason why changes are so painful on projects, is that you've gone through this effort, you've defined your scope, then you've estimated cost, time, the number of resources, the equipment you'll need, and so on, to do this work and only this work. And because projects are about efficiency, you've been efficient. You said, yeah, all of this will take us this long, cost us this much, and we'll need X amount of people. Great, cool. When a change comes along, it's like me saying, well, hang on, what I'm going to do is give you more things to do. That's good, but I'm going to leave this side of the equation untouched. You're still going to have the same constraints effectively. And if you look at that, I've now diminished your capacity to do the original project work because I've lumped all that stuff on you. So what we want to do is we want to make a decision. Should we do that stuff? And if so, do we need to increase this stuff so the work can actually get done? And in a nutshell, that's change management. Scope creep, which comes along every now and again into discussion, is basically the, I'm going to call the word organic, the slow growth of the project scope past any approval point. So your scope was this, it's been approved for this, and it just slowly over time starts to creep, get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, eroding all your resources and budgets and schedules and so on. So by the end of it, your scope has grown by 30%. Often this goes unnoticed. The reason why that's bad is because it hasn't been costed, and because it's creep, not a change, it hasn't been approved. So getting justification for this after the fact often becomes a painful exercise. So, my 4-step process to managing change. Number 1, should we do it? Is there a need for the change? Here I look at the request. I look at what's the purpose of this change. And if you've got a good change request form, there's one on the website if you don't, change request form. This solves a lot of the problems. One of the things I learned was the integration of a single aspect on my change request form just saved me so many issues. And that was a little description where the person initiating the change or requesting the change had to tell me, what is the purpose of this change? Simple. So you just ask them, what is the purpose of this change? I'm not knocking it down, I just want to know why. And I found that the number of changes in my projects, or the requests that came through, went down dramatically, just from inserting that thing. Why should we do it? And it's a fair enough call, because if you want to change and you can't justify the reasons why it should be done, maybe it doesn't need to be done. Some people just want changes because they get bored, they get complacent in a project. You're doing all the work and they're like, oh, nothing seems to be happening, or wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Here's a thought, great, let's make it pink. And then organically the work grows and it's painful. So firstly, is there a need? In that assessment, I look at value as well. What is the value of this change? And that looks at the benefits of the change versus the cost of doing that. And the change request form has all these things as well. I also look at any other risks that it brings into the project, and I also consider the risk of not doing the change. So it's a two-sided approach to risk management there. And then I look at what's it going to cost us to do this. So express the time, costs, and resource commitments we need to do this. So that's my number one. If it gets through that, it's got a need. Great, let's move on to number two, which is getting your team involved. Consult. Talk to stakeholders, talk to your team, inform them that you've had a request, you've had a change come through. This not only empowers people and gets them on side because they're like, well, we're being asked about this, but it also gives you different perspectives. Remember, your team are the experts. They're the ones who know technically whether this is a good idea or not. Often they've got experience in other projects where maybe this change has been proposed, failed or succeeded. So, I mean, I can't play down the value of consulting. It's just awesome. We should do more and more of this and less going, I'm the project manager, do the change. Sorry for the wiggles bit. That's a dad joke. All right, look, and the team will also let you know of any issues and so on. Number three, before we start doing anything, we, as soon as possible, communicate what we're going to do. You've asked people to provide insight, now communicate your decision. Are we going to do this, yes or no? Another good rationale for actually going through this and communicating is, I'll bring everything back to science, but if you consider this dude called Newton, and he had these laws of motion, and one of them he said that if an object is in motion, it's basically going to keep doing its thing until you tell it otherwise. Paraphrasing, but you get the point. So if you've told your project team to go and do work in this direction, they're going to go and keep doing work in this direction. If you've agreed at a high level, hey, we're going to go in this direction now, but not told them, they're going to keep going in this direction. No offense, but you don't have mind readers on your team. And I see this as the classic, oh my God, why are you doing this? Last month we changed and we went over here. Well, no one told me, so I kept going. So do the writing and tell them, even before the change has been acted, say, look, in about 2 weeks, we're going to change and go over here. So maybe put off any of this work because it's going to be rework. I can't stress this enough. Make it formal. And by this, I mean write it down. This gets people into a lot of trouble. And often because we trust each other. And the FBI's got a very good motto, it's trust but verify. And I like that. Look, I trust that you can do the right thing, but here's a piece of paper that just says this is what we agreed. If you think about it, at the start of the project you had another piece of paper which said project charter and effectively as a contract. You're making an addendum to this contract, so it makes sense to write it down, have it in the same format. What often kills a lot of projects is verbal changes. And no matter how small the change is, I just say write it down. Because what happens is, you do the project, changes along the way, and you've got good intentions, and here was the old client. And then you've made all these changes, all these agreements with the client, then the client's representative changes. That guy leaves and another person comes on. And what they've got to go from is the contract, the project charter. So when they see any variances from this, they say, well, hang on, that's not what we agreed. Yeah, but remember Bob, the guy before you? Yeah, me and him, we had all these meetings and we agreed all these things. It's awesome, just let it go. A good contract administrator would say, no, I'm not going to let it go because Where's the writing? Where are the minutes of the meeting? Where's the stuff that explains we've deviated from this? So do yourself a favour and write it down. So make it formal. Once it's formal, then, and only then, can you go through and do, and that's implement the change. So once you've gone through those steps, then start doing the change. Great. You've got approval, it's formal. So this is the approval, by the way. It's formalised, you've got approval, it's been signed off by both parties. Go and do the work. I find that the human condition sort of, and I'm guilty of this as well, pushes us to making step 5 step number 1. And we go through, a change comes through, especially if it's from senior management, we do it, then we work backwards. And we slowly realise, oh my God, we probably shouldn't have done this. There's no need for it. Everyone thinks it's a dumb idea. Communication becomes a headache because I'm now forcing them to do it because I've committed. And often we don't write it down until it's too late. So if you follow this 5-step process, it makes change management so much easier. Okay, so do well and realise that no project is safe from change, no matter how well it's been documented, no matter how well it's been agreed, no matter how awesome the idea is. The other point to take from this, and I'll make this very quick, is that the value to integrate changes diminishes over time. And I've done a great video called Potential to Add Value. So look at that and that will show you why it's actually best to do changes as early as possible, because the later you do them, the less value they add to the project. Cool. Have fun. See you guys.